The real estate questions in Santa Fe, the big ones, now add up to a total of $90 million minimum. One is the $35 million College of Santa Fe. The other is the $55 million county courthouse. We'll tackle both questions and pose the question whether there's a way to solve both of them together. First, the courthouse. There's a hole in downtown Santa Fe that everyone suspects bottoms out on a field of contaminated water that is likely sodden with petroleum contaminants from gas stations in that area many years ago. That finding has put a sudden stop to the building of a new county courthouse. The $55 million project was to have had 2 underground stories of parking until they ran into that groundwater. Now the entire project may be in jeopardy. Jim Norton of the State Environment Department says they asked county officials a number of years ago for permission to install a monitoring well there to see the extent of the contamination.
I believe they were aware that there may be some pollution issues, and certainly there were some gasoline storage tanks from old gas stations nearby. And so we, in fact, 4 years ago, asked the county for permission to put in a monitoring well on the county property in order to better determine what the pollution from those sources was. But unfortunately, we didn't get that approval to put in that monitoring well, and unfortunately don't have that data. Also, we are aware that the county has drilled their own wells, but we don't have that data yet about the extent of the pollution. So it's difficult for us at this stage to determine the extent of the pollution or where it came from. And it's important to know that before we determine what steps may need to take place to clean it up.
They've got a public meeting coming up in a week or so. You should have data before that. Wouldn't you agree, in order to make some substantial comment at that meeting?
I would sure hope so.
Jim Norton at the State Environment Department. Well, why didn't county officials allow the monitoring well to be installed? I spoke with Stephen Ulibarri at the county headquarters about who knew what when.
This question was raised several years ago. It was about 4 years ago, from the information that I have on the subject. And they had made the request. It was discussed several months by the county attorney's office, by staff at the time. And what happened was there was never really a follow-up. The response from the county wasn't that it was denied. Nothing ever came of that, and there was never a response from the county, and then the Environment Department never followed up.
So the county didn't deny it, you just didn't respond to it?
We didn't respond to it, correct.
There are monitoring wells in the region, I understand. I'm hearing from business owners downtown in that area, right around the corner. They have monitoring wells. They're tested once a month.
That's correct.
So then the state never did install a monitoring well at that site. And what was the reason then for not responding to the state request to have one?
We've been discussing that over the last several days. A couple of things. One is we have several new members of staff. Roman Abeta was not the county manager at the time. Joseph Gutierrez was not the community services director. That he wasn't with the county at that time. So we were trying to track down the information, and to Steve Ross's recollection from our legal department, the most information he has in remembrance of that request was that it was discussed, but he doesn't remember ever giving a response to that.
Jim Norton at the Environment Department says that they've asked for data that the county seems to possess on monitoring on your own part at that site, but they haven't gotten it. What happened there?
We are still collecting the data. It's not that we haven't denied the data or are withholding data. The data is still being collected.
And so it's not available for them, even piecemeal?
Correct. Yeah. What happened was, Bill, was we had started to collect the data. We had one of our consulting firms, one of our contractors who was working on the project, was collecting the data, and then there was something wrong with the information. It wasn't collected properly, and so we had to start all over again. And we brought on another firm as a result of that. And so we had to start all over again and collect the information again.
Will there be any reason to have a public meeting next week if the data aren't available, if you don't know the answers to certain questions?
Well, I think, Bill, that the answers are pretty clear. I mean, we are, for example, we know that at 35, I think it's 35 parts per billion, the contamination is at such a high level that, it's obvious that something needs to be done. The recommendation from staff, Bill, is going to be that if we're going to continue on the site, we need to do a full and complete cleanup of the site before we build the building.
But your consultants will have to say that it's okay, that you can remove groundwater totally. It's not
Correct.
dirt, it's groundwater.
Correct. And it's going to be the entire site. I mean, everything. We want to make sure that it's going to be a certifiably clean site if we're going to build on that site. And what the commission is going to have to decide is if they want to do that, what the costs and the time constraints are going to be. And if that becomes too big of an issue, then we might have to look at moving the courthouse to another site.
Has another site been discussed?
There have been some sites discussed, none in particular, but there's several ideas, and a lot of people are coming to us with ideas. There's been some sites before we had selected the downtown site early on, so there's several sites, not one in particular.
Stephen Ulibarri at the County Administration Building.